Okay, let's get started. So again, welcome. My name is Chris Jagazia, and I've got James Haywood with me. We are the founders of a software service called Off2Class. And today we're going to talk to you about onboarding prospective ESL students. So when we talk about onboarding, what we really mean is as italki teachers, you're going to have a lot of students that contact you that are interested in taking lessons with you, but they won't all be ready yet to commit to a long-term learning relationship with you, and it's your job as a teacher to onboard them from kind of prospective ESL customers, ESL students, to long-term customers. And that's what we're really going to focus on today. We've got some pretty cool tools to show you that you can use as an online ESL teacher to really onboard new students and convert them into long-term paying customers. Just like to repeat that we are recording today's session, and about 24 hours after today's session, we'll send out a recording for everybody to review. And please post your questions live in the QA function on the top left of your screen, and we'll take up a live QA at the end. So a little bit about our backgrounds. Both myself and James have been working on Off2Class, which is a software for ESL teachers. We're used by both online ESL teachers, so italki teachers that are teaching on Skype or Hangouts. We provide the learning content you need to teach your lessons, as well as the tools you need to manage your students' learning. That's our background, and in this role of developing Off2Class, we get to come into contact with lots of ESL teachers all over the world, lots of online ESL teachers. And one of the things that ESL teachers always ask us who are teaching online is, where do I find students? And that's the subject for another webinar. But you're all on italki, so that's a great place to acquire new students. But one of the things that always surprises me is very few ESL teachers ever ask me about, okay, once I've found some students, how do I, once a student tries me out as a teacher, how do I sell myself as the right choice for them? I.e., how do I onboard prospective students? How do I convert those leads into long-term students? Very few teachers ever ask me about that. And number two, that's really half the equation in growing your independent ESL teaching business. So that's kind of the formula for growth, and we'll go over that. But really, there's two parts to growing. You need to generate leads, and you need to convert the leads. Then we're going to talk about onboarding as a critical element, and then I'm going to jump into a demo and show you some tools we have at Off2Class that you can use to onboard your students. So let's get started. So as I was mentioning, in my role at Off2Class, I come into contact with online ESL teachers all over the world. Many of them teaching with italki and with other platforms. And as I was saying, when I do these kind of meetings with ESL teachers, one of the things that ESL teachers always ask me is, where am I going to find students? But very few ESL teachers ever ask me about onboarding, about converting. So that's why we decided to have this webinar today, to really talk about converting prospective ESL students into long-term customers. And if you think about growth, if you think about growing your online ESL business, what's required to grow your online ESL business? Well, we like to think of it as having two factors here, A and B. So A, your growth is going to be determined by two factors. One, the number of prospective ESL students who try you out as an ESL teacher. So on italki, that really comes down to, your rank, your reviews, your metrics, and coming up into search results as an ESL teacher, as a choice for an ESL teacher. But one thing that we rarely talk about is B, and that is out of how many students that try you out as a teacher, how many of them are going to convert into long-term customers? And actually, the irony here is that B is much more in your control than A. So from that perspective, what I mean is, A, on italki, there's going to be a number of factors, such as your reputation and your reviews, and it's going to take time to build your pipeline on A. But for B, i.e., selling yourself as a teacher to students that come and try you out, that's 100% in your control. So that's what really the subject of today's webinar is B, when students come and try you out as a teacher, how do you sell yourself as the right choice of as a teacher? So that's really what onboarding is all about. So converting these trial students into long-term paying customers. And our general recommendations is definitely selling a personal approach. That's your competitive advantage over as a tutor over schools, over the other possible choices that your students have, is really selling yourself based on a personal approach. So what you're trying to sell as a tutor is, don't worry, this isn't going to be another experience like a language school, like a language institute. I'm going to take a 100% personalized approach. I'm going to tailor your learning specifically to your challenges, your ESL challenges, your deficiencies, and I'm going to come up with a tailored plan that's specific to you as a learner. Now, the next obvious question is, okay, great. If I get 10 trial students a week, how can I possibly invest that much time into selling myself as the right choice for students? How can I tailor an individual learning plan for every student that wants to try me out, that wants to take a trial session for me? And that's really what we mean is, how do you do this at scale? How do you do this in a repeatable format so that the student feels like you've taken a completely personalized approach, but you haven't invested too much time yet in developing this plan before you know whether the student is going to come on as a long-term customer? And we've got a really interesting tool that we want to share with you today at Off2Class that can help you do this at scale, that can help you show your students an individual learning plan that's tailored to their needs without having to invest too much time before you know whether this student is going to come on as a paying customer for you at italki. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into a demo and show you the tools I've been mentioning. So I'm now logged into Off2Class. I'm logged in as a teacher. I'm not sure if everybody has had a chance to log into Off2Class, but you can set up a free trial account for Off2Class, which will give you access to about a quarter of our library for 30 days. And as you can see, I've got a logo up here in the top left corner. It says the way to learn. This is just a dummy logo that I found off the internet. The reason the dummy logo is up there is I wanted to show you that we can actually brand Off2Class with your own logo. So that's a new feature that we've released. And obviously that's very important for italki teachers to build your brand recognition. So the reason that you're going to see that dummy logo in a number of places on the demonstration today, and the reason that's there is just for illustrative purposes. Usually the Off2Class logo would be there. And I'm logged in as a teacher right now on the teacher page, and this is our ESL lesson library. So you've got over 500 lessons here that you can use to teach your lessons. They're designed to be taught live during live sessions with your students. So if you're teaching on italki, we integrate with Skype, with Hangout, with whichever video conferencing system you're using to deliver your italki lessons. including Zoom, the system we're on right now. I'm going to go under this teacher button up here. I'm going to click on the placement test. Now, this is a grammar diagnostic, but this tool we originally released just as a placement test to send to your new students to determine which lessons are appropriate and where your students' ESL deficiencies lie when you're taking on a new student. Now, an interesting trend has emerged with our ESL placement test, but actually a lot of teachers on Off2Class are using the ESL placement test for onboarding new or prospective ESL students. And so it's really emerged as a tool to sell yourself as a new ESL teacher. And so assigning the test, so what I recommend doing is actually assigning this test to trial students. So if a student contacts you and says, you know, I'm on italki, you look great, I'd like to take you up on a trial lesson and see if you're the right teacher for me. What I recommend is, even before your trial lesson, assign this test to your student. So all you need to do is press this big assign test button here, this big green button. And I'm going to choose to assign this test to a prospective student. So a student that I haven't yet registered in Off2Class. So you click this prospective student button, and you can set up the student account right here. So all you need to do is give the student a nickname, something you're going to remember them by, enter their email address, create a password. You can use the same password for all your students, and select their interface language. So if your student is a beginner and you're not sure that they have the web literacy to access a web product in English, you can actually change the interface language to their L1. So you set up the student account. We'll deliver you the login credentials. You send those to your student, and your student logs into Off2Class. It's very simple, just an email and a password, and they complete the placement test. And the placement test is 100 questions. Right now, it's a grammar diagnostic. It only focuses on grammar. We're adding other competencies in the near future, such as listening, speaking, reading. But it's a 100-question grammar diagnostic. It pulls off a database of 800 questions, so you can assign it to the same student multiple times. The first 20 questions are going to be at the A1 level, at the beginner level. The next 20 questions at the A2 elementary level, and it goes up in 20-question increments all the way up to the C1 level. And each question, I'm going to just open up the sample questions here. Each question, as one of the options, has I don't know as an option. So the reason I don't know is an option is because you can actually send this test to any level student. And if your student answers I don't know 7 times in a row, we'll cut off the test so it doesn't get demotivating for your student. So your student sits the test and submits the test back to you, and you get notified as the teacher. And I'm just going to show you what you get back as the teacher, because that's really the powerful part, is in the results. So I'm just going to click on my student management button up here, this yellow button, and we can then see the students that I have registered to Off2Class. Here are all the students I've got registered on Off2Class. I'm going to click on Jose. I know that Jose has taken my taken the placement test recently, and here are his results. So in the top of his lesson history table, we have his placement test results sitting there. And I'm going to open up his results. And as you can see, Jose is a B1, and he attempted the first three levels of the test, and then he answered I don't know 7 times in a row for the B2 question. So we cut off the test. But I know that everybody loves their levels, students love their levels, and many teachers are really into levels as well. But the more powerful part than the levels, and actually this is what I would recommend walking Jose through on your trial lesson together is his gap analysis. So for every question that Jose got wrong or answered I don't know, we list the question, we list what Jose got, we list the right answer, and then we show you the lesson from our library that deals with that deficiency, that deals with that learning point. And what I would recommend is actually your student has sat the placement test. Now you have your trial lesson together, and use these results, share these results on Skype or on Hangouts during your trial lesson, and walk your student through this. Say, okay, you're a B1, but you've got fossilized errors at the A1 and A2 level that nobody has bothered or nobody has given you the personal attention yet to fix. And this is going to be common for many of your students. Very few of your students are going to be coming to you having never taken an ESL course before. Many of them will have been through the private language institutes and are now coming to italki looking for something different, looking for a more personal approach. So when I talk about onboarding and using the personal approach, this is a very powerful tool, walking your students through their fossilized errors and saying, listen, as your coach, as your personal ESL coach, the first thing we're going to do is look at your fossilized errors at the A1 and A2 level, and we're going to fix those first before moving on to lessons at the B1 level. And you can even show him in your trial lesson, listen, you are struggling with your object pronouns. Whether you like it or not, you are struggling with your object pronouns, and we're going to clear this up right now. And you can open up the lesson that deals with these questions directly from here. I'm just going to click on the object pronouns lesson. The system asks me if I want to enroll Jose into the lesson. I choose to enroll Jose into the lesson, and we're in the object pronouns lesson. Right away, you can start teaching Jose. When you're teaching online, I'll just show you some basics of using our system. You need to press this full screen button to hide the teacher notes. So I'm just going to press the full screen button, and right away, you can start covering object pronouns with Jose during your trial lesson, just showing him the style of teaching, the personal approach you're going to take, making sure he understands his object pronouns, and you could clear up a deficiency right there and then in your trial lesson together. So I'm just going to close this classroom 1 second. I'm going to go back to Jose's placement test results. And this is the crux of what I wanted to show you. It's a very powerful tool to send to your students in advance of your trial lesson together. And I can tell you that not only do most tutors not take a personal diagnostic approach like this with their trial students, but many language schools do not even take this level of a diagnostic when it comes to trial lessons. And when we talk about the concept of scale, of being able to show a personal approach to your trial students without having to invest too much time ahead of whether they're going to come on as a student, well, you can assign this test to Jose within a minute. All you need to do is, I'm just going to go back quickly to the placement test page. But yeah, I could assign this test within a minute to Jose. And then it's up to Jose to go complete the test, spend the time answering the 100 questions, and then you could log in 5 minutes before your trial lesson, have a quick review of his results, and right away share them over Skype, over Google Hangouts during your trial lesson, and your students will be blown away with this approach. With the level of personalization that this shows, and the best part is it's at scale. It's something that you can do repeatedly for all your trial students, even before they've taken the decision to buy a package off you as students, as learners. And I'll just show you one other thing. This gap analysis, these lessons that we're recommending from our library to deal with Jose's deficiencies, to deal with Jose's challenges, we also populate this lesson plan or this lesson schedule into Jose's learning plan. We call it the individual learning plan. So when you click on Jose in your student management table, now Jose has decided, wow, I'm very impressed with the personal approach you've taken. Jose's bought a package off on italki, and now you're in a kind of a proper learning relationship with Jose as a customer. We actually take these lessons from the gap analysis and we put them into Jose's learning plan. So every time you teach Jose, you can actually go into his learning plan and launch lessons directly from here. And as you teach Jose these lessons from the learning plan, we'll remove them from the learning plan and then add them to his lesson history table. So it also helps you once you get into the relationship of actually teaching. Now, the learning plan right now is going to be populated with grammar lessons. Obviously, there's only so much grammar that any student can take in a row. So you can also splice in some speaking activities, some reading activities, some other activities besides grammar. You can merge into the learning plan as you see fit. So that's the crux of the demo that I wanted to show everybody today. I would be happy to get into some QA if anybody wants to post questions up in the QA. I know people have been posting, but feel free to add more questions up in the using the QA button in the top left of your screen of your Zoom window.
While we're waiting for a couple of questions, you might be worth explaining the A1, C1 standards for, especially for North American users who may not yet be familiar with them.
Okay, absolutely. So James mentioned that maybe we should go over the A1, C1 level. I'm gonna open up Jose's results again because I think we should open up Jose's results. So here are Jose's placement test results, and as I mentioned, we are putting Jose at the A1 level, and this is a language competency proficiency level provided by the CEFR, and it's the Common European Framework for Languages. And basically how it works is A1 is roughly means a beginner, A2 roughly means an elementary student, B1 is a pre-intermediate student, B2 is an upper intermediate student, and A1 is sorry, I got that wrong. Let me go over that again. A1 is a beginner, A2 is an elementary, B1 is a pre-intermediate, B2 is an intermediate, C1 is an C1 is an upper is an advanced. Sorry, James, do you want to take over on that question, please?
So for those of you who aren't familiar with the reference standards that were developed by the European Union, for most Europeans, A1 to C2 are now very common. In North America, they are gaining ground. So the standard was always to use across language teaching across the world was somewhere between beginner and native proficiency. But of course, those terms are extremely relative. And what the Council of Europe established back in the late 1980s was a framework that really provides rubrics. So A1 today which is what all of the major publishers use who are printing within the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, and also in Southeast Asia is now using these, is that A1 essentially equates to beginner, and then you can move up until you get native proficiency at C2 level. Of course, there's a wide range in between. The idea was to put standards in, and within those standards, you would have elements that you would need to reach. And you can see here on the screen that to the right of the CEFR level is an explanation of the functions of language that a student should be able to complete to be at that level. And the reason that the Council of Europe went with those standards is that across languages, different skills come at different times. So for example, people who are learning French as a second language often struggle with pronunciation. They have a much lower level or a proficiency of pronunciation. If you're learning Turkish, people can learn tenses extremely quickly, but sentence construction can take a long time. So because different standards arrive at different times, there are competencies or elements of the language, functional language, that relate back, rather than just giving something such as upper intermediate, which are quite arbitrary. So that I'll pass you back to Chris.
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention, Nicole had a question here about how would a US teacher use this. Don't get too hung up on the proficiency levels.
Wait, 50% of the users are US.
Yeah, most of the people using Off2Class are located in the US. We had to pick one framework to use, but largely you can think of these as synonyms. And sorry for getting slipped up before, but you can think of A1 as a synonym for beginner. You can think of A2 as a synonym for elementary. You can think of B1 as a synonym for pre-int. You can think of B2 as a synonym for intermediate, and A1 as a synonym for upper intermediate. You don't need to worry too much about the Common European Framework, but we've chosen to provide that rubric as a guidance to everybody. And you can see that we've even included what the rubric entails for each level. So here in the result, you can see this is straight off the Common European Framework. So you could go over this with your student and say you're being ranked at a B1 level, and this is roughly what it means. But again, I wouldn't go, I would de-emphasize the level a bit here with your students. What I would be focusing on for sure is the gap analysis. You can easily get lost in a level conversation with your students. No, I'm not a B1. The last language institute I was at told me I was a B2, and it can easily derail your trial session together if you focus too much on the level. What I would focus on in your trial session together is the gap analysis and the learning plan, and that you have some fossilized errors. Jose, you've got fossilized errors with object pronouns. You are much better than that. You rank much higher than that. But what we need to do first is take a personal approach to fix your fossilized errors at the A1 or the beginner level. And that's what we're going to target first, because I'm a language coach and I tailor everything I do is all about you and about fixing. I'm not going to take a one-size-fits-all approach. I'm going to really target your challenges here.
We have a good question about how students integrate with Off2Class.
Okay.
Someone has requested Nicole has requested, can students buy a package? And I think it's good to explain.
Okay. I'll give you guys, that's a great question, Nicole. I'm going to jump in and give you guys a little bit more background on how Off2Class works. So first of all, Off2Class is a product for teachers, for ESL teachers. And I mentioned that because we're 100% focused on teachers, we actually don't sell Off2Class directly to students. We don't sell Off2Class as a self-study product. So this is sold only to teachers. And the way Off2Class works is teachers bring their students onto Off2Class. So it's completely in your control as a teacher. And there's a number of ways to bring your students on. You could bring your students on, as I showed before, when you're assigning the test. Here, when you click Assign Test, you can set up the student account, and then they'll be registered in Off2Class. Or you can always just set up students in your student management button. There's a big button here that says Add Students. And if I press that, I can set up student accounts. And then once you've set up student accounts once in Off2Class, they'll be registered to your account. So that means that anytime you take action in Off2Class, so for example, anytime you go to teach a lesson in Off2Class, let's say today I wanted to teach a speaking activity, fears and phobia, I would go ahead and launch the lesson by pressing this rocket under it. And right away, the system asks me, who am I teaching today? So I'm going to say that I'm teaching Jose today. I'm going to enroll Jose, and then I'm in the lesson. So it will be saved in my database on Off2Class that I've taught Jose the lesson. And at the end of the lesson, we've had a great session together. At the end of the lesson, I go to close the classroom, and the system asks me whether I want to send the homework to Jose that goes along with this lesson. So I'm going to send the homework to Jose. Jose gets notified that you've assigned him homework. He logs into Off2Class, the same place where Jose logged in to complete his placement test. He logs into Off2Class to complete his homework between lessons. So really the way Off2Class works is there's a synchronous component, live teacher-led lessons that are designed for your live sessions together with students, whether it's on Skype or Hangouts. And then between classes, there's an asynchronous component. So your students log into Off2Class to complete the homework assignments that you've left for them. And then you can take up the homework assignments in your next session together. And if there's interest, I can show that element of Off2Class as well, the kind of homework side of things. Is there?
There's a question, and I'm sorry I wasn't listening. Amanda asked if students have their own access to, so maybe just explain the teacher-led nature and why we do what we do.
Sorry, so the question was?
Can students basically go in and choose their own stuff off the site?
Okay. Hannah's basically asked whether students can go in and just access Off2Class on their own. So really, we're a tool for teachers to deliver great lessons to their students. So this is not designed to be a self-study product. And the reason is that we believe that teachers are essential for secondary language acquisition. So by background, James is an ESL teacher who is teaching online. And when James was teaching online, he found there wasn't a lot of good teacher-led content that was designed for a teacher to bring alive during a class together. So that's really where Off2Class started. So this library that we're on, this lesson library that we're on, has over 500 lessons. And these lessons are designed to be taught live by you in your sessions live with your students. So I'll just show you again what that means. I'm going to launch the fears and phobia lesson again.
Sorry to interrupt. Once you've done that, can you also show the homework component at the end of the lesson?
Okay, so I'll walk you guys through the entire process here. So I'm teaching Jose today. I've launched a lesson and I'm going to enroll him in the classroom. So this is the fear and phobia lesson. And what you basically have is the Off2Class, the student slides are on the right and the teacher notes are on the left. So every time you move a slide, the teacher notes move with you. On the first page of the teacher notes, you have a number of the primary objectives in the lesson. This is just showing you what you can expect to find in the lesson here. And then every time you move a slide, the teacher notes move with you. So the teacher notes coach you as a teacher on how to teach the content. So obviously you're going to want to hide the teacher notes from your student while being able to see them yourself. And the way you do that is by clicking this full screen button in the top right here. And I'm going to go ahead and press that. And the teacher notes pop up. And I just need to make a bit of space for the teacher notes. And now I can see the teacher notes on my screen, but you, as my students, you can't see the teacher notes, as long as I've done that correctly. And so this is the lesson content. This is the live lesson content that is designed to be taught live with your students during your session together. And we've got a number of tools that you can use to adapt the content live with your students. In the top right here, you're going to see a text tool, a pen, and a magnifying glass. So if I click the pen, I get an annotation tool, and I can select my color and my size, and I can start drawing on the screen. So this is great for exercises. Start showing the progress live as your student is giving you the answers. Of course, these are designed for live conversation classes, so everything follows the communicative approach. Everything is designed for your students to sound out, to answer verbally. And yeah, you can use the annotation tools to bring the content alive. We've also got a text tool up here. So you can actually write on the slides as you go. Do you have any fears? You can also focus your students' attention by using the magnifying glass. So you can zoom in on any part of the slides that you want your students to be focusing on. And also, during lessons, we've also got a tool called the Canvas. And you'll see there's a button in the top left here that says Canvas. I'm going to press that button. And I get taken into an interactive whiteboard. And the reason we released this feature is especially for people like italki teachers that are using Skype and Hangouts where there isn't an interactive board set up. This is actually an interactive whiteboard. So you can draw on this interactive whiteboard, you can add your own text, you can add images, and you can add YouTube videos. And you can use this in two main ways. You could populate this canvas before lessons and use this during your lessons with all your pre-populated images, text, and YouTube videos that you like to use during this lesson. Or you could build this interactively live with your students during the session. So I'll just show you. I'm going to bring an image onto the canvas by clicking Add Image. I'm going to choose an image off my desktop. Hopefully I've got something. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here's an image with my friend's son. And I can load images and YouTube videos onto my canvas prior to my session together with my students. And when I launch that lesson, when I launch Fears and Phobias, all my content is going to be saved on the canvas, is going to be oh, this photo is a bit big, is going to be pre-populated. So everything on your canvas automatically gets saved. And each lesson has its own canvas. So every time I open up Fears and Phobias, all my content is going to be saved on my canvas from the last time I populated it. And the other nice thing is if you're building these canvases live with your students, we automatically send it to we send a copy of the canvas to your students at the end of the session together. So I'm going to go ahead and close the canvas, and I'm going to come out of full screen. And now let's say that we had a great session together. We taught the lesson with our student. We built a canvas. And at the end of the session, I'm going to close the classroom because our session is over. We've had our live lesson. And the system asks me whether I want to send the homework to Jose. So each of these live lessons also comes with a self-study component that your students log into Off2Class between lessons to complete. So I'm going to send the homework to Jose. And now I'm going to show you what Jose sees when he logs into Off2Class between lessons. And the way I'm going to do that is we actually have a function where you can log into your students' accounts directly from your account. So I'm going to click on Student Management. I'm going to click on Jose. And there's a button here under Jose's little picture that says Log in as your student. So you can actually log into Jose's account directly from your account. So this is a really nice feature if your students are ever questioning something. Oh, I didn't receive that homework. Oh, I don't know how to use Off2Class. You can actually log into their account directly from your account, so you can take up any issues they're having. So I'm going to log in. I'm going to press this button and now log in to Jose's account to show you what it's all about. So this is Jose's account in Off2Class. As you can see, the branding, the dummy logo that I pointed out at the start is front and center. So you actually have the option to brand Off2Class with your logo. And your students will see this when they log in. They can log into Off2Class from any internet connected device. So I'm sure some of your younger students don't even have computers anymore. And they can actually log in from any mobile device. It works on Android, it works on iPhone, Windows Phone, or any tablet. And they log into Off2Class between classes to complete their homework assignments. So Jose's active homework assignments are up here at the top. And down below are his lesson summaries. So each time you enroll Jose into a classroom, into a lesson, we deliver him a lesson summary. And this is automatic. And the lesson summary tends to be 4 to 7 key slides from the lesson. For grammar lessons, they tend to have the grammar explanations. For speaking activities and vocabulary lessons, they tend to have vocabulary lists and any definitions that were covered during the class. And the really nice thing is that the last slide of the lesson summary is going to be the Canvas. Your student will actually be delivered a copy of the Canvas. So I'm going to open up the Canvas, and here's the copy automatically of the Canvas that we built live during our session. So in this sense, you don't even need to think. If you build a Canvas live with your students, it will automatically go and be the last slide of the student's lesson summary when they log into Off2Class. So I'm going to close this lesson summary and just show you the homework assignment. I'm going to open up the homework assignment. They tend to be 2 to 3 pages of homework. For kind of pre-intermediate and above, we always give an opportunity for writing. So here are 2 short answer writing questions and a longer answer writing question. As you know, it's hard to get students to write these days. So almost all our homework assignments have an element of writing in them. And so, yeah, Jose logs in between classes and submits his homework assignment to you. And then you get notified as a teacher that Jose has submitted his homework assignment. I'm going to go back to Jose's account. I'm going to go back to my teacher account. So now we're back logged in as a teacher. I'm logged into Off2Class on my teacher account. And here is Jose's profile. And here are all the lessons that he's completed with me. And I'm going to open up one of his completed homework assignments. So he's partially completed his business emails homework assignment. So I'm going to open that up. And a lot of teachers, a lot of online tutors will actually take up the homework as the first 10 minutes of the next session together. So Jose completes his homework between classes, and then usually what I like to do is then take up the homework assignment live with Jose as the next 10 minutes of the next class. And here you have the answer key is on the left, and you've got Jose's answers on the right. And this makes it very easy for you to take up this homework live with your student because you've got that nice parallel view. And anytime Jose's answers are different from the answer key, we highlight them in orange. Anytime they're the same as all of these are, we highlight them in green. And the orange just shows you, as a teacher, it's time to give some attention to this answer. And you have some feedback tools here on the right that you can use to give feedback to your students. So I'm going to drop this notepad on this question here, and I can leave a comment first for Jose. Great job, really impressed. And I can also leave general feedback for Jose. By dropping this notepad on the bottom, I can leave feedback that's not linked to any question. I could say something like, really great progress. And this is a nice way of, again, really personalizing your lessons with your student, taking that personal approach. When I go and close the homework classroom, oh, sorry, because that was partial. Well, I'm going to log back into Jose's account, and hopefully there's a good example of a, oh, sorry. Well, once you've reviewed your students' homework assignments, they will appear down here in their reviewed homework assignment list. And when your students log back into Off2Class, they'll receive a notification that you've reviewed their homework assignment. When they log back into Off2Class and open up their reviewed homework assignment, they'll get all your feedback, all your comments, all your notes will be there for them. Which really is a nice kind of personalized approach. And you can think of it as their login on Off2Class starts to become a very kind of personalized record of all the work they've done with you as a tutor. And it can be the asynchronous component, the online home for your students can definitely be a way of also retaining students for your online business, to keep them coming back for more lessons. So not only when they pay your fee on italki, not only are they getting a live lesson with you, but they also get the in-between lesson component of being able to log into a very professional system and complete homework assignments.
Okay, there's one final question, and I guess it's for italki teachers. How would you market the placement test as an italki teacher or an online teacher?
Oh, well, we actually have some copy that you can use. We have something called the media kit. So anybody that comes on as a subscriber to Off2Class, we actually provide you with a media kit, which gives you examples of copy that you can use to actually advertise. But generally, I would say that for all trial students that come on and take a lesson with you, you offer a free placement test, a free assessment, and in your trial lesson, we will go over the results and discuss your individual learning plan. That's really what I would use to advertise it. That if you try a lesson with me, you're going to get a one-on-one coaching session where we go over your placement test results and discuss your individual learning plan to attack your ESL challenges. That's how I would go about it.
Okay, I think that's about it. We don't have any further questions.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, we are going to sign off. Just a reminder that 24 hours, give us about 24 hours, but we'll get the recording of the session up and email it out to everybody. If you have any questions for italki, you can email support@italki.com and just quote Joan Joan is the teacher coordinator who helps us organize these webinar sessions. So if you have any questions related to today's webinar, but specific for italki, you can email support@italki.com and just quote Joan, who's our coordinator at italki. And we really hope that you enjoyed today's session. And we really hope that our placement tests can be used by you as a tool to convert prospective ESL students into long-term paying customers to help you grow your business.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everyone.